Hi there everyone, welcome back to We're Yard. It's really great to have your company, and today this is following on from a question that I received about my collection. So I'm going to talk you through the diesel locomotive fleet that I have here on We're Yard. So first up, it's probably logical to start with Class 3 diesel shunters. And these are the three that I have in my fleet. So first one at the front, that's a Model Zone Special Commission from way back when, 03179 in Network Southeast Toothpaste livery. We've also got 03066, which was one of the first release of the newly tooled Bachmann Class 3s. And finally at the end there, I think it was a Rail Express exclusive, 03371, and this is the only one in my fleet with the witch's hat type exhaust. Now I do really like these locomotives, and I would buy more as and when they come up. In fact, I've got my eye on the announced DCC sound fitted version that Bachmann have announced for release at some point in the future. Next up are my Class 4 collection. Now there's one that's not here, but I've got a photograph of it in BR black, which was actually one of the first, if not the first, Bachmann locomotive that I ever bought. But these two are much more firm favourites in the BR Rail Blue. They do have a charm all and onto themselves. The only thing about these is they're a split chassis design, so yet to decide whether these will get DCC fitted or not, or whether they will be relegated to the single outer DC line. But these two, D2258 and D2267 in the weathered livery. That is a factory applied weather livery. Got here my single Class 5 diesel shunter. It's a Helgen model, and actually I use this as my benchmark for how smooth a locomotive can run. I would actually love to see 05001 appear in Rail Blue. I've got a real soft spot for tops numbers, but for now, this locomotive, which was picked up second hand, really does showcase just how good this locomotive is from Helgen. It is, in my opinion, one of the best models that Helgen have produced. This is my Helgen Class 7. It's currently the only one that I've got in my fleet, although not averse to getting more. It is a really good locomotive, quite easy to DCC fit as well. And again, real soft spot for tops numbered Rail Blue. There's a weathered one, I think it's 07002, has been released by Helgen, and it is on my radar. But for now, this is the only Class 7 in my fleet. So I've got here some of my Class 8 collection, and I'm going to have to do this in several waves, quite simply because Class 8s are one of my firm favourites, and I've been picking these up since Bachmann brought out its super detailed model, and then later on when Hornby tooled up a really exceptionally good model, I picked up a few of those as well. So first up in this lineup, we've got 08800 in Intercity Swallow livery. This particular locomotive, it was the first Intercity livery locomotive that I ever bought, and actually I really do like that livery, although it seems very clean and white. It's probably a livery that certainly on these locomotives benefits from a little bit of weathering. This here is the Red Star Parcells Starlet, which was it's done in the Red Star Parcells blue with the red stripe livery. It was a special commission by Model Zone, and actually I think it was the last locomotive that they commissioned from Bachmann just before they went bankrupt there, 08721. It's a really nice runner, and this livery is actually one which I was quite pleased to see announced. Just sorry to see the demise of Model Zone, but well worth picking up this model. Next up, we've got another Intercity liveried Class 8. This time, this is one of the Hornby ones, and I've actually got this sound fitted. 08673 Piccadilly. I picked this up second hand, and very pleased with it. The Hornby models are really exceptional. Another Hornby model here, the Liverpool Street Station Pilot 08528, again sound fitted. And then one of my personal favourites from way back in the day, 08507, and this is in the sort of weathered, faded blue that Bachmann did as a Collectors Club special model, probably in about 2001, 2002. This is quite an old model. It's not actually a DCC ready model, but as you saw in my video for hardwiring older non-DCC ready locomotives, it was ridiculously easy to get this running on DCC using a hardwiring of the Hornby 4-pin chip. So just before we move on and I set up some more Class 8s, hovering about up here is 08243. Again, a Bachmann model, and just in the overall rail blue. I do love this livery, and for a while I was kind of picking up every example that I could find, but I have kind of reined myself in these days. The next wave of Class 8s that I got here, this again, another Bachmann Collectors Club Special Edition, Captain Nathaniel Daniel, 08484 in the Felixstowe Ports livery. And this locomotive is actually probably my only post-privatisation locomotive, but I picked it up second-hand quite cheaply actually because the cab glazing had fallen inside, and it's actually a ridiculously easy fix, but the retailer probably didn't realise that, so had marked it down to about 25 quid, and it would have been rude not to get it. And actually the livery has grown on me, so I may make an exception and just keep this and actually use it on the layout. Next up, another Bachmann model, D4192. This is in the BR later crest green with the wasp stripe ends. Again, a second-hand purchase. Quite often these Bachmann Class 8s can be picked up very, very cheaply. This one was unboxed. I think, again, I only paid £20 or £30 for it in full working order. So even though it's not the period I tend to model, I was quite pleased with it, so kept it in the fleet. 08762, again, just real soft spot for this rail blue livery with the tops numbers. So couldn't resist this when it was brought out brand new, actually, from Bachmann. This was a new purchase by me, as was the next one. This is 08648 in the departmental grey livery. I always like some of these slightly different pre-privatisation liveries, and this particular one, I don't know, just something about it. It has been in the wars a bit, as you can see from some of the handrails. This was one of the locomotives that was stolen during a break-in, but I did get it back, but still a bit of TLC needed, especially on those cab handrails or the lack thereof. D3509 was a Hornby, well, it is a Hornby Class 8, again in that BR green livery. This locomotive is not sound fitted. In fact, it's the only one of my Hornby Class 8s that didn't get sound fitted, although it is DCC fitted. I got it DCC fitted for the knockdown price of £40 from Arcadia Models in Shaw. And it just goes to show it's really good to swing by some of these other model shops and see what they have on their second-hand stands, because quite often this stuff is priced to sell, and that's how you still get yourself an affordable bargain. And that rounds off my Class 8 fleet. So there you have it. This is the only Class 9 that I have in my fleet, an Engineer's Grey Dick Hardy 09012. And in all honesty with you, again, it's not one that's in keeping with the period that I model, but Class 9s are just so difficult to get hold of in the these decent sort of BR tops period liveries. They have turned up in BR green in model form, but I think both Bachmann and Hornby seem loath to turn them out in the tops blue period. Just, plain old tops blue model would do me just fine. But until then, this Dick Hardy is in my fleet, sound fitted, and it is actually quite a good performer. Now, I can't remember whether this is a Class 10 or a Class 11 or somewhere in between. I know it's not a Class 8 or definitely not a Class 9. I don't think it's a Class 12 either. But this is Basra, a Longmoor military railway locomotive, and never was a BR locomotive in real life. I believe she may still exist out there somewhere. But Bachmann produced a model, again a special commission for Model Zone, It wasn't a strong seller, it has to be said. I picked this up when Models On went bust, and they still had them for sale then. But she is a good performer, even though it is quite a garish colour scheme, the Longbourn Military Railway livery. But I'm sure you'll tell me in the comments whether she's a Class 10 or a Class 11. The base model, of course, is just the Bachmann Class 8, so a little bit of manufacturer's license to be able to produce a model of this locomotive. I have just one Class 14, and it's this rather strange and perhaps slightly garish load haul liveried example, is 14701, with the name Keith, done as a special commission by Hattons quite some time ago. And actually, the one that I really wanted was, I think it's 14029, and it's one that's still on my radar. I also like the NCB blue one that's been produced. Two different livery versions of that have come to the market, but until I spot a Tops blue version of this, then this is probably more display cabinet fodder. I won't get rid of it, but certainly, with hindsight, it's not a livery that I would have gone out of my way to choose. The only Class 17 in my fleet is the Ribble Cement example. It's an interesting and different model, but again, with hindsight, I would probably prefer a Rail Blue example. The prototypes weren't really all that successful, although the prototype of this particular one is the single sole surviving Class 17s. This was picked up second-hand from a friend who was disposing of some model railway items from a boyfriend who did a runner owing her a lot of money. So in lieu of that money, she disposed of some of the bits and pieces he left behind, and I bought this from her. It's a lovely model, but I don't actually run it a lot because the livery itself kind of limits its usage, but it's a nice one again for display cabinets. I thought I'd switch up locations on Weir Yard to show you some of the Class 20s. So this one here, 20042 in Waterman Railways black, and you may recognise this at some point from a TV series where it got some screen time. But for now, the actual background of this locomotive is I bought it through Bachmann Direct, and it was a leftover from the London Toy Fair, some stock that they produced specially for that event one year. Now, I know that they did a model of the other Waterman Railways Class 20, but I don't actually have that, so this remains a bit of an anomalous livery, but I do actually quite like it. It works so well with that grey roof that the Class 20s just really suit a grey roof. Now, you've probably seen in the background already 20063 and 20192. I think these were the first two Tops numbered 20s that Bachmann produced back in the day. 20063 is actually sound fitted, despite the fact that she's quite an old chassis in there with the 8-pin, and I had to replace the speaker on the Hornby TTS chip to be able to really fit stuff in. But it all did fit in, and she's actually quite a good performer. Now, if we go over here, D8000, I'm sure you've seen her in a lot of my running videos, in the National Railway Museum special commissioned gloss green. She's got the later 21-pin chassis, which actually means there's a cutout for a speaker, so sound fitting her proved really actually quite straightforward, and it's a good sound that comes out of it. Can't recommend more highly the Hornby TTS sound chip for the 20s. Now, if we go over here, what you can see is my weathered 20058, bought second-hand again for a ridiculously good, favourable price. Nothing wrong with her at all. In the box from Arcadia Models second-hand table. So again, just showing that there's some good bargains out there. I do like this weathered finish. I'm not actually sure whether it's factory applied or whether the previous owner did the weathering job, but it certainly does look the part. This is my only 22. It's a Daypole model, really good performer, D6318. And actually, I really do like this model, and picked it up when, I think it was Hattons were having a bit of a sale on these quite a few years ago. She's run extensively out on the garden layout because she is a very good performer. So very pleased to have a 22 in my collection, even if the original full-sized ones were not anywhere near as successful. Class 24s, again, another quite favoured class for me. This is D5054. I believe it was one of the very first releases from Bachmann when they brought this model out. So you can see there in the rail green livery with grey roof. Again, grey roofs look so good. I do have a soft spot for this livery, even though the BR green with the D numbers is not necessarily my favourite, but that just looks so right on a Class 24. Bought her from new and very pleased with her, although they tend to shed the cab handrails. You can see there she's missing one at the end, as is 24035, which she's a bit of a hybrid. She has the chassis off D5087, I think it is, which I bought again new, which I didn't really go for the pre-tops blue, so I got a spare top second-hand for a few quid and matched it up with the chassis. So that's how I've come by 24035, which in reality was, I think it was released in a set with two coaches from Bachmann, a DCC set, right when DCC was the newfangled thing. So she's a bit of a hybrid, but she is a good performer. And again, you can see lost one of the cab handrails. I really must sort that out on some of these. Another one with a missing cab handrail, 24047. She's a renumber, bought second hand, and I think probably renumbered from a 5087 model. A lot of those kind of got repainted, so they're actually quite hard to find now. I do still have an unadulterated lid from 5087 somewhere, so at some point I might be able to find a second-hand chassis and reinstate that locomotive. But for now I've got this soft spot for tops numbers, and that's one that's never been released as that identity from Bachmann, so it's something unusual for the collection. And then here we've got 24081, which I believe was the very first release in tops blue from Bachmann. Again, bought this brand new, and I fell in love with the class, actually with this model. I wasn't familiar with the class at the time, and I saw this model and just immediately fell in love with it. So that's the story behind 24081 in my collection. 25s are another firm favourite for me. So first up, we got these two in two-tone green. Both of them picked up second-hand, D5237 and D7645. And it was just simply a case of these were acquired second-hand at a knockdown price. I'm sorry about that. It's just one of those things at the right price. Quite a lot of different liveried locomotives, which aren't necessarily my thing, become my thing. So it's a bit of the magpie collecting syndrome. Further down here, and I'm going to lift this out rather than plonk it on the track. So this was a Model Zone Special Commission, D5218, and this is in the rather unusual London Midland region chromatic blue, but with small end yellow, and it was just a livery that kind of caught my eye. It's just something a little bit unusual, so that's the story behind this. Bought brand new from the Model Zone in Manchester, in the centre of Manchester, as was. Hiding away down here is 25095. This was bought second hand. Again, real soft spot for the BR Tops Blue. And I really went in for buying up loads of these Class 25s. So let's have a look around. What others have we got? Well, 25279 sat there. Again, bought second hand relatively cheaply. And that's the thing, these have been on the market for so long. I can remember when they were brand new, and they were coming out brand new for about £30–35. So you can pick them up relatively inexpensively. Over here, 25087. I believe this was the very first release in Tops Blue of the model. Again, bought brand new by myself. Further along here, 25034, released as part of a DCC set, probably with two coaches and a Bachmann DCC controller, one of the cheap ones. Next up, just looking down there, 25054. And the thing about the Bachmann 25, a lot of people criticised them, but for their time, they were really, really good. And I think they still hold their own. Now, I know that, I think it's Helgen have announced that they're bringing out an all-singing, all-dancing one. But I've got too big a fleet to really contemplate replacing them all. And I am more than happy with these. Bachmann tooled up to produce the 25-1, 25-2, and 25-3. So there's still a lot of variety from this model, and I've just been more than pleased by them. Now, hiding away in the background there, this is probably about as close as I can get. This is 25052 in factory weathered condition, and this was one of the first that came with a 21 pin socket from new. So there's something you're going to have to contend with the older Bachmann Class 25s. They're all DCC ready, but not all of them are 21 pin. Some of them are 8 pin. The easiest way to tell them apart is that the 8 pin ones do not have directional control lighting, and the 21 pins do. This over here is actually one of my favourites, 25083, one of the first locomotives issued by Bachmann, factory weathered. She's on an 8 pin socket, so no directional lights, but still a firm favourite for me. I nearly forgot, final entry for the Class 25s, and this is Ethel 3. Got there the number 97252, converted from a Class 25, but actually this is a fully functioning 21 pin chassis Class 25 from Bachmann. It runs just like an ordinary locomotive, but the Intercity livery really does suit this class. So a bit of an unusual model. She was produced for the London Toy Fair one year by Bachmann, and the leftovers were sold through the Collectors Club. I don't believe it's actually that difficult a model to get hold of, but certainly I did manage to get hold of one direct through Bachmann, and more than pleased with this. And doesn't that livery suit the 25? I've got the one Class 28, see over there, D5701 in BR blue. It's got a D number, but then again, of course, none of the 28s got their tops numbers, so not really able to get one with a tops number. Although if somebody brought one out, well, if Helgen brought one out, then I'm sure that I'd find myself picking it up, just as I've got one of the Class 35s in, I think it's a departmental Dutch livery has been announced, and it's very much on my radar. I don't have a Class 26 or 27, and they are two locos that I would rather like to get. My only Class 31 sat here on the turntable, 31439, in Regional Railways livery, another livery which I really do like. And this was bought brand new from Bolton Model Mart. And it's one it had in stock for quite a few years. So even though I was paying the original price on it, when you factor in the fact that the RRP from Hornby for the newer versions had gone through the roof, it was actually a really good price. And the lesson from that is, don't forget to check out some of the more obscure model shops, support them, and browse the shelves, because sometimes you get a pleasant surprise finding something that's been in stock for an awfully long time, and therefore by modern standards seems a pretty good price. 37s aren't necessarily a massive favourite class of mine, but I do still have a few. Regional Railways livery, again I said to you with the 31 I do like this livery, so I have 37429, which is one of the early releases from Bachmann. A lot of people criticised the chassis on this, but actually I don't really have any problems with it. I've actually sound fitted this one using the Hornby TTS chip, and it works just fine for me. Next to her we've got 37431 Bully Day in the Intercity livery with, I think it's metal sector stripes there, just the crest under the cab window. This one doesn't actually have a motor. The story behind this is that I picked up second-hand some very cheap lids for 37s. I got the Regional Railways one, and I also picked up this Bully Day one in Intercity dirt cheap, and just swapped the chassis between them. So originally I had two tops, one chassis. I then got an opportunity, was just pretty much gifted. I think I paid postage and that was it, for a Bachmann 37 chassis minus the motor and circuit board. And that's what this model is actually sat on. So she is purely for display, but I do have a soft spot for that livery. The final 37 is very much my favourite. This is 37116, and she's on the slightly newer all-wheel drive 21-pin chassis, and I have sound fitted her. She's one of the flagship models, I guess, in my sound fitted fleet. She's got pretty nice weathering on it. Again, not sure if that's factory fitted or it's something that a previous owner has done. She was bought second hand for a pretty good price. But I do actually quite like this. I'm not a 37 person, but this particular one has pushed the right buttons for me. This is my only Class 42. It's D827 Kelly in rail blue, of course. And it's one that's grown on me. I bought it because it was very, very cheap, brand new in one of the Hatton sales quite some time ago. I actually did a box opening and review when I got it. And it was factory DCC fitted, but that actually was very, very cheap, even if it hadn't been fitted. And it kind of scratched my itch for having a Class 42, which was something I kind of hankered after. And then later on, when I went DCC, it formed the nucleus of my fitted fleet with locomotives that had been picked up over the years, second-hand or brand new even, with chips ready fitted. So it kind of kicked me off and allowed a core nucleus for around 10 locomotives when I first went DCC that I knew that I could run. Going on next to it, I don't have a Class 40, which is a class that I'm sort of on the lookout for. But what I do have is my peaks, and I've got a Class 44, 44008, that's Penny Gent. Next to her, we've got a 46, we're actually jumping ahead of ourselves here, 46053. And then finally, I've got 45120. Now, she's a 21-pin chassis, and I have earmarked for her sound fitting. So at the moment, it's not chipped, but when funds provide, I actually do want to get her sound fitted. Meanwhile, the 46 and the 44 are on 8-pin chassis, and they've just been standard DCC fitted. So both of those are able to run on the DCC areas of the layout at the moment. Onto my 50 collection. This is 50002, one of the Super Detail Hornby models. It's a really good model. And this particular one is sound fitted with the TTS chip. And it's really good sound from it, really pleased with that package. The TTS chips, I can't really say anything more highly of them because they are brilliant value for money. Behind her is 50045. Now, both of these were bought second-hand in mint condition in the boxes. But this particular one, I believe, has an issue with the wiring up of the boards inside, which causes her to, I'm told, blow DCC chips because it should be either positive return or negative return, but it is the opposite of what it should be. I haven't put it to the test. I'm not going to blow chips just to see for myself. But what we'll probably end up doing with this model is hard wiring and bypass the board. Works just fine on DC, but just want to make sure. So at the moment, this is still just DC fitted, but it would be nice to be able to run them in tandem. It is a nice livery, that Network Southeast. Behind is a Helgen Class 52, and this again scratched an itch. Really wanted a 42 and a 52 in my collection, and I've managed to get an example of both. So D1058 Western Nobleman, and this was a really good bargain buy from Derry, long-time friend of the channel. And it just goes to show that you can source these at a really good price. So I did a box opening and review, I believe, and I did talk a little bit about that. And also, don't forget, you can check out the live stream where we had Derry as a guest on. Really informative. But that's the story behind this Class 52. It's an older style chassis, so it's 8-pin, but dirt easy to DCC chip. It would be nice at some point if Hornby could bring out a TTS sound chip for both the 42 and the 52, and actually the 25 as well. They're all models that they have their sort of railroad models of. It'd be quite handy to be able to sound fit some of these other models, but you know, we'll see. They are expanding their range. Next up to my Deltics, and one of them is the prototype Deltic, seen here, a National Railway Museum exclusive, and this is an exquisite model. Full 21-pin chassis in there. I've got a 21-pin chip in. I haven't actually sound fitted it. It's probably another one that would be nice to see a TTS chip from Hornby for, because they did have, or certainly maybe even do have, a Railroad 55 in their range. But behind it is the Bachmann 55, and this locomotive has been a disappointment to me ever since I bought it, I'm sorry to say. 55020, this is Nimbus, and it sheds buffers, and there's just something not quite right about it. In my mind, I'm really looking forward actually to I think it's a Cura scale bringing out an all singing, all dancing 55, and I would love to be given the opportunity to review that model, because really when you compare the Bachmann production Deltic to their prototype Deltic, they pulled out all the stops for this one, and this one just feels not quite right, but it's still in the collection. I couldn't decide whether the Class 73 should belong in electric locomotives if I ever did a video outlining my collection in that area, or not, but I've decided I'll include it here anyway. So Daypol 73124, and despite the fact it came in for a lot of criticism for the shades of the yellow and the blue, this is a really solid performer. It's a well-designed model, it runs really well, and actually there was always going to be some variance in real life anyway between locomotives, between different paint shops, how the paint weathered over time, going through carriage washes, that kind of thing. So I don't think it really looks out of place at all. So more than pleased with this Daypol 73 in the collection. It's the only one I've got. I'd love to see the 74, the Big Ed, come out. It was announced by DJ Models, but we all know what happened there. Hornby brought out the 71, and it'd be nice if they kind of had the ability to have slides in the tool to make the 74, but until now, we just have to make do with the 73. Mustn't forget the industrial shunters, so we've got a couple of the Hornby Sentinels here in my collection. MSC DH16, when this was announced and brought to market, I had to have this livery. It was a must-have for me on account of my exhibition layout being Grove Street Yard, which is modelled on a corner of Trafford Park. So obviously this and the Peckett number 11, the W4 Peckett, were must-have locomotives. Oh, and mustn't forget the Hatton's Andrew Barclay CPC liveried locomotive too. So I went from having no local locomotives to having 3, and I was very pleased at that. Next to it, we have the other version of the Sentinel that Hornby produced, which was the rod drive as opposed to the chain drive. And this is Barabel. I have actually DCC fitted both of these, and they do run all right, but the short wheelbase does hamper them a little bit. They actually are the legitimate use for the 4-pin Hornby DCC chip. I also have an NCB liveried chain drive, which was from the first release of these models, and I need to go and find where that is hiding. It's probably in a display cabinet somewhere still. So I'm going to go and grab a photograph of that so that I'm able to show you that one too. And that brings an end to all of my diesel locomotives. Of course, I do have some DMUs, DPUs, diesel parcel units, of course. So there are other bits and pieces, a lot of electric locomotives, and my steam fleet is massive. So if this video goes down well, my hopes are that maybe I will bring you other videos to show you my collection. But as somebody did ask what diesel locomotives I had, I thought this was probably the best way of showing them all off. I hope this video has been informative to you. Don't forget to like it, and really important, share it too. Let others know about this video. And it's been great to have your company. Always really glad to have you along for the ride. And until next time, you take really good care of yourself. This is me, Jenny Kirk, saying bye for now. Today's video has been brought to you in part thanks to the generous donation of my fans on Patreon. And an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Bob Threeton, Alec Ralph, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Allen, and oorail.co.uk. If you'd like to help support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk. Thank you. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knob T. Mouse. Thanks, and catch you later.